Hi friends, I'm Louise from Made by Elle, and this is my tutorial for my pattern, the Cybrary. As my shirt proclaims, I am a book nerd. I'm a lifelong book junkie. I am an unapologetic book pusher. I've been reading since I was 3 years old, and so I got to put my mother and my grandparents through a couple of extra years of torture with that. I have zero regrets. So as I was sitting here one day and having a moment where a book in a series that I've been reading for several years now came out in e-version, but not in audio version, which is my normal preferred format due to my spinal injury, I realized that I have a lot of books in e-format, and I want to be able to take them with me wherever I go, but I don't necessarily want to read them on my phone screen. I want something a little bit bigger. I have various apps on my iPad that will let me read my ebooks, but I don't always carry I don't want to always carry my iPad in just my regular case. I sometimes want to carry it in something a little more fun. So enter the Cybrary. This is the first final version that I made using this completely gorgeous dragon print in the version 1 Neoflex from Soulful Therapy, which Amy was kind enough to let me test out. And so the Cybrary, this version is a bound version. The Cybrary comes with magnetic snap opening, a zipper pocket. This one's going in the wrong direction. Let's just pretend it's not. The zipper pocket where you can carry your charging cord in. And on the inside, I've got the clear TPU case that my iPad Pro 11 fits into, and then a pocket for me for my Apple Pencil. Again, this one is bound because it was done with a not intended to be necessarily raw edge textile, though it looked fine with raw edge. This one is done in vinyl, which was my original plan for it. So again, magnetic snaps, a zipper pocket that actually opens in the right direction. You can see that it is set up for my iPad 11 Pro, and there's my Apple Pencil. The final version that we did has an angled pocket. One of the testers suggested that, so we added that in there. And it also has instructions for using woven fabric with it. Some of my testers use woven fabric, so we added that in. This is not intended to be a protective device. I cannot stress that enough. This is not intended to be a protective device. This is a cover for your device. It will not protect it if it gets dropped. Is not intended to protect it if it gets dropped. It's not intended to protect it if something falls on it. It's not intended to protect it if something spills on it. This is a cover. It's a decorative cover that you turn the right way. It's a decorative cover that makes your library look nice, shows off your personality as you're walking around carrying it with you. But it's a relatively quick and simple make, and I hope that you love it as much as I love making it. And I hope that you also share all the books I should read. So for now, let's get to sewing. Let's go over our pattern pieces. First we have got, this is going to be my exterior piece. And this is going to be the interior. And this is my accent piece. Pen pocket. The 2 zipper pocket pieces. Got my zipper tape. I'm using a size 5. I'm using zipper by the yard, size 5, cut down to the measurement given in the pattern. And then this is the silicone case for my iPad, which is an iPad Pro 11, the 2024 version. And this one in particular, this case in particular, came in a box. And so instead of cutting chipboard, I'm using I cut up the box and I'm just simply recycling it and using it as my stabilizer in this. So if your tablet case comes in, or e-reader case comes in a box, then you can reuse that if it's a sturdy one, and this is very sturdy. If you don't have chipboard, which is what the pattern specifically states is written for, then you don't have a box, you're going to need to use multiple layers of Decaville Heavy, and I'm honestly not sure it's will come up to the sturdiness that using chipboard, or in my case, reusing my box, will give you. I've also got my tag, zipper pull, and 2 magnetic snaps for the flap. One thing I forgot to show you when I was showing the pieces is that on the back of my exterior piece, all the markings are made for laying out the alignment. All these measurements are given in the pattern, and so they are already marked out on here on the reverse side of this for me so that I can know where I'm cutting, know where I need to place stuff, and that's just very helpful. We're going to work on creating our zipper pocket now. So I've cut out my pocket, cut out the zipper cutout. I have cut the zipper cutout. There we go. Cut the zipper box. I have laid tape across the top of each of my pocket pieces, and we're going to pretend that this has not already been sewn and I did not put it together backwards. And so what I'm going to do now is with one of my pocket panels right side up and my zipper right side up, I'm going to align the centers, center marks on the zipper, and the center mark on the pocket panel. And I'm going to align this right along the edge. Now I'm going to sew along the top edge with the seam allowance listed in the pattern. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Because I want this to lay as flat as possible when I am setting it in here, I'm going to fold the seam allowance back behind this. And this is really thick waterproof canvas. It's actually grill cover waterproof canvas, so it's possibly thicker than the 600 denier, or however that is said. So I'm going to use my handy dandy seam roller, weighted seam roller, to try and press this and make it a little bit easier to get it to lay flat. And then I am going to sew this. I'm going to sew along here with my zipper. Now it will be facing down. I'll be sewing along the inside of my pocket. And I'm going to sew that down so that this will lay flat. And I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and end. Sewing this with the seam allowance listed in the pattern. Again, just make sure that that seam allowance is tucked under the pocket panel. And back stitch the beginning and end. As I'm going along, I'm reaching under and folding this, and then just pulling my panel flat. So this is what it looks like now. We're simply going to repeat this exact same step for the other side, for our other panel piece. This is what our pocket looks like at this point. Our zipper is right side up. We're looking at the the lining parts, the back part of our zipper pocket, and on the inside is the right side of our zipper pocket. I'm again going to lay some double-sided tape down off camera, and I will be right back. So I have my double-sided tape laid down now. What is important to remember at this point is that when this is closed, our pocket is going to be here, and this is going to be our flap. So this will be the top of our piece, and it will not be hurtful to anyone anywhere at any point in time to make a mark there to tell yourself that that's the top. But that's important right now because when I'm laying this zipper here, I'm gonna want my zipper to go open from top to bottom. So at the top it's closed, and that way it just makes it less likely for things to fall out. The pocket's under the flap. It's incredibly unlikely for anything to fall out anyways, but this is the overabundance of caution that is my brain. So we're gonna fold this really long piece up. And you can pick whether you wanna start with the top or the bottom. For reasons unknown to anyone with any sense, I always start with the bottom piece, probably making my life exponentially more difficult, but hey, here we are. You can do this with glue as opposed to tape if you're worried about your machine. Since we are going to be top stitching around this, 1/8 inch tape should be fine, but if you swerve, then you're going to hit the tape, and that's just life. So if you want to use something other than double-sided tape there and use glue instead, I don't blame you. Okay, so now what I want to do is I've got a center mark that is barely visible, but I can kind of sort of see on my exterior piece, and I've got the center marks on my zipper. And what I want to do is align the center mark on my zipper with the center mark on my exterior, and then press down and smooth it flat when I am satisfied with the position of the zipper within my box. And if I'm not satisfied, I just pull it up and reset it. That's the only downside to having glue, is that could get a little messy. But let me get my zipper pulled through there. And there we go. All right, so at this point my zipper is in place, it is taped in, and I'm rolling this up so you can see my zipper pockets are splayed open. And now we're just going to sew around this box with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And I leave it up to you. You can backstitch or you can pull your threads through. I'm going to pull my threads through for a cleaner look, but backstitching is completely fine. So this is where we're at now, and what we want to do is fold our pocket down, folding this piece down, and then what we want to do is clip along our edges, and we just want to make sure that it's smooth. We don't want to pull it to where it's going to cause our exterior to swerve and be funny. We want to clip here, and we're going to go ahead and trim off our excess. Yeah, that's not anything I'm good at, so let's do this. Cutting with scissors is just not really among my skill sets. Now we're going to flip this over so that our exterior is right side up. And we are going to sew down, turn, pivot, and so across the bottom of the pocket, and then back up the other side and completely close this pocket off. We're going to back stitch at the beginning and end. All right, so now our pocket is sewn together, and we have a fully functional pocket to put our charging cord in, or our pens and pencils if we want to carry anything extra with us. Next, we are going to add our magnetic snaps to the exterior. And there are measurements given in the pattern for where these go. I am using pronged magnetic snaps. So I'm going to take my washer and draw the marks for those, for where I need to make my cuts. It's on the exterior. Like I said, I've folded my pocket out of the way, so I'm doing it, but putting them on beforehand would have had the magnet sticking to my machine, since the bed of my machine is metal. So I'm putting them on now. If your machine is not metal, you can put them on before. Choose at what point you want to make this particular adventure. All right. Now I'm going to place the female part of the magnet here. And what I'm going to do now is place a piece of waterproof canvas, or you could use Decaville, you could use cutout. If you've like done a box bag recently, you could use one of the cutout corners or whatever. I just want to back my hardware so that this washer doesn't rub against the vinyl and cause it to wear out faster. And again, I'm putting another one on top for the exact same reason.
She jumped up and saw a story.
The cats are having whole moments over here.
And aborted.
I always push mine to the inside because in my brain it seems safer. It feels like it makes it less likely to come loose. And then I'm going to place a piece of double-sided tape of duct tape over this as well. Probably way more steps than I actually needed to hold that in place, but I feel better now. And there are the snaps, the first set of the magnetic snaps. Now we're going to take our accent piece and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to align our washer, or if you're using a different type of snap, align it however, but we're going to set our male portion of our snaps here. All right, and we've got the female set of snaps set. All right. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take the end of our panel, probably easier if I show you the whole thing. We're folding up our pocket part, and we're going to work with the opposite end of our exterior panel now. And I'm just clipping this to keep it from unrolling and being super duper bo booper unwieldy for me. And we are going to take our accent piece that we've attached our snaps to, the female portion, the male portion of our snaps to. We're going to put it right sides together. This works better if I have this right side up. Right side up, flat portion of our exterior. Right side down, the side of our accent piece that does not have the snaps attached to it is what is being attached to our exterior here. So I would like Beth from So Country to know that the only reason I am not double putting DST here is because I am literally on my last roll of a 1/8 inch DST from Wawak. So I am instead going to put 43 clips on this to sew down one straight seam. And that I expect her to send me both a gold star and a brownie for not using double-sided tape for this, because I use double-sided tape for everything, everything, everything. All right. Now we're going to sew down this with the seam allowance listed in the pattern. Nixie has decided to join the show. I know that you all didn't really come here to see what I'm doing, but you actually came to see what she's doing. So what she's doing is monitoring the neighborhood out her window that I rudely put my sewing machine in front of. We're going to backstitch the beginning and end. As I'm sewing with vinyl, I'm going to sew a second row of stitches just to the outside of this row to help reduce pulling and my stitches showing through. We have another visitor. Stormy has made an appearance. Say hello, everybody. Hello. All right, so what we're going to do now that this is sewn on, we're going to fold it over, and we're keeping our seam allowance to the accent side. So we're folding it over with the seam allowance underneath the accent piece, and we are going to top stitch along this edge here. And I am going to back stitch here. I'm actually not. I told a fib. I'm not back stitching here. I'm going to tie my threads off. You can back stitch though. And now what we have got is our accent piece is sewn onto our exterior and top stitched over this part here. Seam allowance is under the accent piece. Now we are going to attach the opposite end of our accent piece, the piece with the magnets closer to it, to our, what is going to be our interior. I'm going to grab another couple of clips here. So we want to line these up right sides together. So I've got my interior right side together with my exterior. And again, the end that has the magnets closest to it. And again, we are going to sew this together with the seam allowance listed in the pattern. And I'm going to, once again, sew a second row of stitches just to the outside of my first set, since I'm sewing two pieces of vinyl together. Back stitch the beginning and end. Now we're going to top stitch this one, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to let our seam allowance here fall underneath the accent piece. Let it fall under the accent piece. So folding it actually this way and letting it go under the accent piece. And then we top stitch along here. And again, you can back stitch here. I'm simply going to pull my threads through for a cleaner look. And as I go, I'm just making sure that that seam allowance is underneath this accent part, not my lining part. All right, so this is now top stitched on both sides of the accent panel. And what we have got now is one super duper bo booper long piece that I can't even fit in here. It's still folded up. So now we're going to start attaching our stabilizers. All right, we are at the point of adding our dramatic air quote stabilizers in. So I've got one piece that I've got bunches and oodles of double-sided tape on, and that's the one that I'm going to put here over my pocket, because the pocket, this one here will just be sewn around, whereas the one in the middle will get riveted. Riveted, yes. We just got to pretend that I talk for a living. I'm going to remove all 23, the backing from all 2,311 billion pieces of tape I put on here. All right. And then I am going to align this edge with this line and the top with my top line, and everything should lay as smooth as it's going to lay, given that I've got a zipper pull underneath it, but it's held in place. And I'm going to switch over and do this one. And I've only got a couple of pieces of tape on this one, the middle one, because this is the one that will be, the case will be riveted to. So again, I'm going to align with this, my side edge with this line here. Yes. Making sure I'm aligning it with the right one. And the top. Or we'll go this way and I'll feel better about it. Okay, because it's a straight edge. All right, and that one I'll press down. Our stabilizer, quote unquote, is attached. You can glue around this, underneath this if you wish. There's no need for it, as this is going to be sewn around in just a moment. So I'm just gonna turn it over, and I can press it down a little bit more this way, but it will hold in place until we sew it together. All right, so the next thing that we want to do, and I'm hoping I can fit this in here to show you without damaging Spike there, is we want to match up the seams on our accent piece here. So I've got the two seams where we folded them under. We want to align those seams and clip that. I'm trying not to get my head in the video, sorry. Line those seams. And clip. And then we are going to you're going to want to either tape or glue, dealer's choice, whichever you are more comfortable with using or whichever is best for your machine. You're going to want to tape or glue around the edges, starting here inside of the flap and going down along this. Again, we can glue over this here along the edges. And I would suggest doing it on both sides as you go. Glue, 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 press it down, glue, tape, glue, and press it down, and then just work our way across from edge to edge with this gluing and taping as we go. And again, use whichever form works better for you. If you don't want to use either, you can clip. I do recommend putting double-sided tape or glue on this, on your stabilizer part. You're not going to be sewing over these boards. I do recommend putting something in there to help hold the two pieces together, even though we are not going to be sewing over them, and especially since we're not going to be sewing over this, so that these don't slide around in any way when we're trying to do our final stitching. All right, now that I've got all the tape on this, I'm going to set it aside for a second, and I'm going to work on what is going to be our pencil pocket in here. And there is a measurement in the pattern, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold this down that amount, and then we're going to top stitch across here, just so our pocket has a little bit extra durability to it at the top where we'll be sliding in and out. And I am going to back stitch the beginning and end of this. Okay, on the inside, so on the lining part, there are measurements given for where to place the pocket, our pencil pen pocket. Now I'm gonna line it up. I've got double-sided tape on it. Again, you don't have to use double-sided tape. You can use whatever you want to use to hold it together. I do recommend tape or glue, but you do you, boo. So line it up along the bottom, and it should fit pretty darn perfectly in between the two marks that you have. And then just press it down. So now we're going to turn this over right side up, and we are going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to add some clips first. I am not worried about this laying perfectly, about whether or not this is like my edges are lined up perfectly or not around like my over my pocket and with the zipper pull and everything, making it a little bit more difficult to get everything exactly perfect, because we're going to sew this with a larger seam allowance and then trim these edges down if we have any overages anywhere. All right, now we are going to sew this with the seam allowance listed in the pattern. You can tie off or you can backstitch. I am going to backstitch. No, that was not a beer popping in the background. Bob is getting him a Diet Coke.
Yep.
Okay, when you get to this edge here, remember to switch your seam allowance over to the one that is specified in the pattern for this edge only. You want to make sure that you're pressing this flat as you go so that you don't have a poofy floofy accent piece. All right, so this is what we look like right now. We're all sewn around. Sorry, the grand puppy just got a bath and he's very excited. Very excited because he's been promised some cheese for being a good boy in the bathtub and not drowning his mother. But we're actually going to sew down these lines to hold our pin pocket in place, and this. Now we're going to sew to the inside of these lines here at the pin pocket, and we're going to sew to the outside towards the snaps and of this line here at the center point centerpiece where our case will be riveted in. Right, I am aiming for starting and stopping my stitches on the stitch line that we've made along each long edge. That's just me. You don't have to do that, but that's what I'm aiming for. Because I'm aiming for it, I will likely miss it, but that's what I'm going to try and do. And again, since this is the line closest, that is by the flap, closest to the magnets, I am going to sew on the side of the line that is closest to the magnets. And I'm going to back stitch the beginning and end of the seam. Now I'm going to switch over and I'm going to sew from the bottom up on these two lines. And again, I'm sewing to the inside of these two lines to catch the side edge of the pocket here so that it's held down. I'm going to back stitch the beginning and end again. And I'm actually going to back stitch here at the top of the pocket because it's going to be under some pressure, and I'm going to give that like 2 back stitches there. And the same thing on the other side of the pocket. Now on this side you do have your magnetic snaps, so you're going to want to hold this side up while you're sewing if you have a metal machine bed. You can hear it snapping too on my machine. Again, I'm going to do 2 back stitches here at the top of the pocket. All right, so that's sewn down, and I have, as you can see, wiped off my chalk lines, and this is what we're looking like at this point. Now I'm going to trim down the long edges. So the edges are all trimmed down now. I am going to be edge coating mine before it's finished, not in the video, but before it's actually finished for me to use it, because the back of my solid black vinyl is white and it's going to show. If you are smarter than me and select textiles that blend, then you may not have to do that. What we're going to do now is we are going to punch the holes in the silicone case that we're using, and marks for that are given in the pattern, and then we're going to punch holes through this. Can you see the marks there? There we go. So the marks are, placement are given in the pattern. We're going to punch holes with the hand punchy thing. I don't know if I can punch one. Superman is here to do this, so but we'll see if I can punch one or if I'm too wimpy to punch one. I'm too wimpy. That's my hands. Those are mine. Those are my hands. I have man hands. We'll be back after we punch those off camera.
Yeah, I got black caps in here.
Beep, 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 beep. Mixie has joined the party. Hello, hello everyone, hello. So, again, these are totally my hands are pushing the rivets up through the bottom. And I have these lovely handy dandy matte black rivets from Atelier Fiber Arts out of Canada. Not sure if it's where she can again, ship to the US, but if she can, you should do so. Her hardware and zipper tape is magnificent. I have 4 hands. I also have 4 hands. I'm very special. We're using the key fob hardware on the rivet press simply to press it down more flatly to reduce the curve. You don't have to. You can use a regular rivet fob or die, and it'll work just fine. But we're going to do that to all 4. All right, well, let's check this out. Try and get it to where you're not just seeing the reflection. So that is what, nope, that's not working. That's what it looks like now with the rivets in. It's held in place firmly. Get my iPad over here. I am not gonna lie, I have no hand strength, which is why Superman has to come in so often and do stuff for me. There we go. All right, so there's my iPad in there, not falling out. This case is not intended to be protective in any way. Not intended to be protective. We just use materials that will look very pretty and have some durability. This is the finished product. So there's what we got. This is a completed Cybrary. There are sizes available for the various Kindle and Nook models. I happen to have an iPad with my Kindle library on it, so this works for me. And I've got a zipper pocket here to put cords in. I do not have a loose cord running around, unfortunately. But as you can see, it stops here. So it's a relatively decent sized pocket. And a slot for my pencil. And you can hear the snaps clip. Let me see if I can do that again. So they fit right on. There we go. All right. That's how we make the Cybrary. I hope you had fun today, and I hope that you make this. And if you do, please share it in the group and let me know. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.